Hi.
Hi.
So you need French accents.
Yes, we got to practice French.
Yes.
Here's the thing. We have someone in studio today who speaks French.
Oh.
And can help us with accents.
That is so rude.
In fact, she went to school for 2 years.
She said that was rude.
French. I believe you recognize who it is by the embarrassment and the laughter all over her face.
I prefer to correct you in anonymity.
No, my dear, you're going to have to help us out with the French accent.
At least in English.
That's on point. I don't even know why you need my help.
All of my French accents are from Monty Python.
That is exactly
Monty Python.
Monty Python.
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelled of elderberry.
Welcome back, everyone, to story episode number 7. Nobody. Okay.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Clairissa would normally jump in.
I normally would, but I'm a bit disoriented today. Today we have some guest stars. Can we call you guys stars?
Whoop.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you
stars.
can.
We're
but
very
They
important
are more
people,
successful
okay?
than we are.
For sure.
So
We have Marcus and Annie from ANX Gamecast.
Yep.
Hey,
Guys, say hey.
Hey.
what up?
you want to tell everyone a little bit about your podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So,
Let's see what you got.
ANX Gamecast
Okay.
is our podcast.
Yeah.
And we review games, anime, movies, all sorts of stuff. That's pretty much it.
And a lot of debates. We got into a really
Yes.
good debate last night.
Debates are great.
Yeah. So if you want to hear some debates about video games and anime and all that kind of good stuff, check us out. ANX Gamecast.
Yeah.
Check us out.
So we're actually joining a network with them.
Hey.
Yes.
So you'll see this on our new screens.
Yep.
We're part of AVersion TV network.
AVersion TV, a podcast network.
Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway,
Gosh, everything you say sounds so much cooler, Marcus. It's really annoying.
I know.
it's
That's
like
why.
you have one of those like movie trailer voices.
That's why I'm going to do my voiceovers just like that.
Anyway, well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
We like having guests on our story episodes. Mm-hmm. So it'll be fun.
Makes it so much more fun because I don't have to be the only person looking like a fool because Caitlin sits over there not having to do a single
Someone has to
accent, just
narrate.
judging me.
Someone
With
has
her
to
French
narrate.
history, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. Anyway.
She's like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, that is me. That is my role on the
That's pretty much
podcast.
the whole thing. Yeah.
And interpreting what Clarissa's trying to say.
Okay, let's get into it.
Okay, so today we are doing a story called The Nettle Spinner. It's from Andrew Lang's collections of fairy tales, and this one is a French fairy tale. So let's just crack into it, shall we?
Let's do it.
Once upon a time, there lived at Quesnoy in Flanders a great lord whose name was Burchard, but whom the country people called Burchard the Wolf. Now Burchard had such a wicked, cruel heart that it was whispered how he used to harness his peasants to the plow and force them to...
I'm sorry, but let me just point out one thing. Flanders?
Yeah, in France?
The Simpsons? Anybody?
Yes,
Never?
that's what I was thinking of.
Okay.
Yes, it's Ned that they're talking about.
Ned.
All right.
We're going to Ned's town.
Good old Ned.
Okay. And forced them by blows from his whip to till his land with naked feet.
Oh.
His wife, on the other hand, was always tender and pitiful to the poor and miserable. Every time that she heard of another misdeed of her husband's, she secretly went to repair the evil, which caused her name to be blessed throughout the whole countryside. This countess was adored as much as the count was hated. One day, when he was out hunting, the count passed through a forest, and at the door of a lonely cottage, he saw a beautiful girl spinning hemp.
What's your name, girl?
What an old French count you are.
This is all I got.
How authentic.
All right.
You could at least put an in it.
What's your name, girl?
Renee, my lord.
You must get tired of living in this ratchet place.
I am accustomed to it, my lord, and I will never get tired of it.
I think that has an Asian twinge to
Yeah,
it. I'm not
what that
gonna
is.
lie to you.
Oh, okay.
That may be so, but come to the crib. I will make you ladies maid to the countess.
How can I do that, my lord? That is so wrong.
What is wrong with you?
Nah, hey, that kind of sound like Southern slave girl. I don't know what that is.
How can I? Hold on.
Hold on. Is that what we're doing?
Okay. How can I do this?
Right on.
I cannot do that, my lord. I have to look over my grandmother, who is very helpless.
What is happening?
I'm dead, guys. I'm sorry. I died.
Come to the crib, I tell you. I will be expecting you tonight.
And he went on his way. Can I go now? But Reneld, who is betrothed to a young woodcutter called Gilbert? Gilbert.
Why did Gilbert make you?
Because it has a
UIL.
It looks like Wilbur.
and an I. It's like Guilbert. Guilbert
Hey,
in French.
hey, it is
Wilbert
French. Yeah.
had no intention of obeying the Count, and she had, besides, to take care of her grandmother. 3 days later, the Count again passed by.
Where were you?
He asked the pretty spinner.
I told you, my lord. I hear you.
You said you couldn't hear me. Now you can hear me?
Now I can.
Okay.
I told you, my lord. I have to look after my grandmother. Does it help when I do the face?
It's so bad.
Come by the crib tomorrow and I will make you lady in waiting to the countess.
And he went on his way. This offer produced no more effort than the other, and Renald did not go to the castle.
If you will only come.
Said the Count to her when he next rode by.
I will send away the countess and will marry you. Put a ring on it.
But 2 years before, when Renald's mother was dying of a long illness, the Countess had not forgotten them, but had given help when they sorely needed it. So even if the Count had really wished to marry Renald, she would always have refused. Some weeks passed by before Bertrand appeared again. Renald hoped she had got rid of him, when one day he stopped at the door, his duck gun under his arm and his game bag on his shoulder. This time, Renald was spinning not hemp, but flax.
What you got there?
He asked in a rough voice.
That was a rough voice. My wedding shift, my lord. Oh. I don't know why it helps me, but it doesn't, does it? It's not working. Sorry, world.
Are you going to be married then?
Yes, my lord. Sorry, I don't even know what's happening. Oh, yes, my lord, by your leave.
For at that time, no peasant could marry without the leave of his master.
You can go on one condition. Do you see those tall nettles that grow on the tombs in the churchyard? Go get them.
He's enjoying the power.
And spin them into two fine shifts. One shall be your bridal gown, and the other shall be my shroud. For you shall be married the day that I am laid in my grave when I'm 6 feet under.
And the Count turned away with a mocking laugh.
You read my mind. In my mind, I was just like, I hope you're mocking.
I did one of these.
Do it.
Renaud trembled.
Lamborghini?
Oh.
Never in all Loquignol had such a thing been heard of as the spinning of nettles. And besides, the Count seemed made of iron and was very proud of his strength, often boasted that he should live to be 100. Every evening when his work was done, Guilbert came to his future bride. This evening, he came as usual, and Renaud told him what Bertrand had said.
Would you like me to watch for the wolf and split his skull with a blow from my axe?
No.
Replied Renaud.
There must be no blood on my bridal boutique.
Okay.
The bridal boutique? The whole building, huh?
Yep.
Whole boutique.
Don't get any blood on my building.
It's a new business. I just started it. Come on, man. There must be no blood on my bridal bouquet. And when we must not hurt the Count. And then we must not hurt the Count. Remember how good the Countess was to my mother.
An old woman now spoke. She was the mother of Renaud's grandmother and was more than 90 years old. All day long, she sat in her chair, nodding her head and never saying a word.
My children,
She said,
all these years I have lived in the world. I have never heard of a shift spun from nettles. But what God commands, man can do. Why should not Renaud try it?
What was that? Is she dead?
she died. That was her dying.
Out of there. Oh.
I'm a method actor, thank you.
She is, if not anything else.
Thank you for the nothing else.
Renaud did try, and to her great surprise, the nettles, when crushed and prepared, gave a good thread, soft and light and firm. Very soon she spun the first shift, which was for her own wedding. She wove and cut it out at once, hoping that the Count would not force her to begin the other. Just as she had finished sewing it, Bertrand the wolf passed by.
Well,
Said he.
how are the shifts getting on?
Here, my lord, is my wedding garment.
Answered Renaud, showing him the shift, which was the finest and whitest ever seen. The Count grew pale, but he replied roughly.
Good. Now, what's the other?
The spinner set to work. As the Count returned to the castle, a cold shiver passed over him, and he felt, as the saying is, that someone was walking over his grave. He tried to eat his supper, but could not. He went to bed shaking with fever, but he did not sleep, and in the morning could not manage to rise. This sudden illness, which every instant became worse, made him very uneasy. No doubt Renaud's spinning wheel knew all about it. It was not necessary that his body, as well as his shroud, should be ready for the burial. The first thing Bertrand did was to send to Renaud and stop her wheel. Renaud obeyed, and that evening Guilbert asked her.
Has the Count given his consent to our marriage?
No.
Said Renaud.
Continue your work, sweetheart. It is the only way of gaining it. You know he told you so himself.
The following morning, as soon as she put the house in order, the girl sat down to spin. 2 hours after there arrived some soldiers, and when they saw her spinning, they seized her, tied her arms and legs, and carried her to the bank of the river, which was swollen by the late rains. When they reached the bank, they flung her in and watched her sink, after which they left her. But Renaud rose to the surface, and though she could not swim, she struggled to land. Directly she got home, she sat down and began to spin. Again came 2 soldiers to the cottage and seized the girl, carried her to the riverbank, tied a stone to her neck, and flung her into the water. The moment their backs were turned, the stone untied itself. Renaud waded the ford, returned to the hut, and sat down to spin. This time, the Count resolved to go to Loquignol himself. But as he was very weak and unable to walk, he had himself borne in a litter. I think it's one of those things where, the men have to carry you, and born as in taken.
Yeah, just litter makes me think of dogs.
Well, anywho.
Okay.
And still the spinner spun. When he saw her, he fired a shot at her, as he would have fired at a wild beast. The bullet rebounded without harming the spinner, who still spun on. Burchard fell into such a violent rage that it nearly killed him. He broke the wheel into 1,000 pieces and then fell fainting on the ground. He was carried back to the castle, unconscious. The next day, the wheel was mended, and the spinner sat down to spin, feeling that while she was spinning, he was dying. The Count ordered that her hands should be tied, and that she should not close... and that they should not lose sight of her for 1 instant, but the guards fell asleep. The bonds loosened themselves, and the spinner spun on. Burchard had every nettle rooted up for 3 leagues round. Scarcely had they been torn from the soil when they sowed themselves afresh, and grew as you were looking at them. They sprung up even in the well-trodden floor of the cottage, and as fast as they were uprooted, the distaff gathered to itself a supply of nettles, crushed, prepared, and ready for spinning. And every day Burchard grew worse, and watched his end approaching.
Dun, dun, dun.
Jesus.
Wanted to add in some effects.
Moved by pity for her husband, the Countess at last found out the cause of his illness, and entreated him to allow himself to be cured. But the Count in his pride refused more than ever to give his consent to the marriage. So the lady resolved to go without his knowledge to pray for mercy from the spinner. And in the name of Renaud's dead mother, she besought her to spin no more. Renaud gave her promise, but in the evening Guilbert arrived at the cottage. Seeing that the cloth was no further advanced than it was the evening before, he inquired the reason. Renaud confessed that the Countess had prayed her not to let her husband die.
Will he consent to our marriage?
No.
Let him die then.
But what will the Countess say?
The Countess will understand that it is not your fault. The Count alone is guilty of his own death.
Let us wait a little. Perhaps his heart may be softened.
So they waited for 1 month, for 2, for 6, for a year. The spinner spun no more. The Count had ceased to persecute her, but he still refused his consent to the marriage. Guilbert became impatient. The poor girl loved him with her whole soul, and she was more unhappy than she had ever been before, when Burchard was only tormenting her body.
Let us have done with it,
said Guilbert.
Wait a little still,
pleaded Renaud. But the young man grew weary. He came more rarely to Loquignol, and very soon he did not come at all. Renaud felt as if her heart would break, but she held firm. One day, she met the Count. She clasped her hands as if in prayer and cried,
Oh, I had to read something. My lord, have mercy!
Burchard the Wolf turned away his head and passed on. She might have humbled his pride had she gone to her spinning wheel again, but she did not of the sort. She did nothing of the sort. Not long after she learned that Guilbert had left the country. Not long after that, she learned that Guilbert had left the country. He did not even come to say goodbye to her, but, all the same, she knew the day and hour of his departure, and hid herself on the road to see him once more. When she came in, she put her silent wheel into a corner and cried for 3 days and 3 nights. So another year went by. Then the Count fell ill, and the Countess supposed that Renaud, weary of waiting, had begun her spinning anew. But when she came to the cottage to see, she found the wheel silent. However, the Count grew worse and worse till he was given up by the doctors. The passing bell was rung, and he lay expecting death to come for him. But death was not so near as the doctors had thought, and still he lingered. He seemed in a desperate condition, but he got neither better nor worse. He could neither live nor die. He suffered horribly, and called loudly on death to put an end to his pains. In this extremity, he remembered what he had told the little spinner long ago. If death was so slow in coming, it was because he was not ready to follow him, having no shroud for his burial. He sent to fetch Renaud, placed her by his bedside, and ordered her at once to go spinning his shroud. Hardly had the spinner begun to work when the Count began to feel his pains grow less. Then at last his heart melted. He was sorry for all the evil he had done out of pride, and implored Renaud to forgive him. So Renaud forgave him, and went on spinning night and day. When the thread of the nettles was spun, she wove it with her shuttle, and then cut the shroud and began to sew it. And as before, when she sewed, the Count felt his pains grow less, and the life sinking within him. And when the needle made the last stitch, he gave his last sigh. At the same hour, Gilbert returned to the country, and as he never ceased to love Renaud, he married her 8 days later. He had lost 2 years of happiness, but comforted himself with thinking that his wife was a clever spinner and, which was more rare, a brave and good woman.
So this is the part where we discuss the moral of the story. I want Marcus to go first.
Oh.
Yeah.
I need these big beds. Bam. Mic drop.
Nice.
Very impressive.
So, I mean, honestly, having to do my French accent, I missed like the whole beginning of the story. Like trying to do
Like, I don't even know what's happening.
right. It's like I'm just trying to do the voice and trying to make sure I'm on cue and all that kind of good stuff. So.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I kind of got too focused on making sure like I was gonna do it right. I kind of got lost. I kind of got lost in the story. I was like, it seemed like she was gonna marry somebody, but Marcus liked this girl, right? But I don't understand who I was playing.
You were her betrothed.
Yes.
So Marcus is this big, important Count. He sees this gorgeous little maid, and he's like, oh yeah, I'll take that. I'll make you a lady in waiting to my wife. And poor Clarissa's like, oh no, I'm already engaged. No. And you were her betrothed. So he's like, so basically the Count was like, you have to sew these shrouds and basically the wedding dress and the shroud he would be buried in when he died. Mm-hmm. And he said, when I die, you can marry Clairissa. So
there was like some lesbian action going on? Or I was supposed to be...
You were a boy.
Oh!
You were a boy.
I forgot to do the deep voice.
He was young.
Okay.
It was kind of deep.
He was young.
Yeah. He was a young guy.
Yeah.
I got you.
It's fine.
Okay.
I definitely went like German in the middle of French.
It's not wrong because there is no th in French.
I'm not gonna lie, you went straight up Harriet Tubman. I didn't know what was going on.
It was like a southern accent plus some German plus some French.
It was very airy, like ha ha ha.
I was trying to be a damsel in distress. That's all.
You were brave and loyal and
some of those words I like didn't know what to do with, so I just like it sounded like just a regular person.
I was expecting Clairissa to play some French stuff for you, which didn't happen.
Yeah, I didn't. That didn't happen. I'm sorry.
No.
I made Caitlin do that.
Which there's a reason I narrate that wasn't going to happen.
So she's responsible for the terrible act.
She's like, I can speak French. I can't speak English in French with a French
I can.
accent.
I just refuse. But
it's like that's not happening.
Clairissa, what's your moral take?
Seems like
patience is a virtue.
No, I gonna go with like your count. It seems pretty boring if you're like, I feel like holding a grudge. I feel like holding a grudge for the next 50 years. Like, I guess
So,
50.
drunk on power is your moral?
Yeah. Seems kind of boring. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, considering the moral is generally based on how it ends.
That's true. I'm sorry. Have
Which
patience.
is drunk on power is punished by painful longing for death.
Yes. If you're mean to people, you're going to die slow,
Karma.
painful
Karma
death.
is a theme
Yeah.
across all of these, isn't it?
That's what I got from all this. You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to start being a lot nicer on my podcast to people. You know,
Yeah,
I'm going to just let them
Are
come
you
on.
mean?
Just truthful.
So a little less truth.
Yeah.
A little more icing.
Softer
Yeah.
truth.
More like when they say
Yeah.
something stupid, I'm just going to.
Oh, no, that wasn't dumb.
Yeah, right.
That was a really good point. You know.
I see what you're saying, but
Well, that was just nothing but sarcasm. I feel like everyone's going to read through that
yeah,
real fast.
Yeah.
it won't last long.
No. Maybe one segment, maybe.
Caitlin, did you find a real moral?
Well, I've already listed patience, it is a virtue.
Yes.
And karma. I think those are what I'm still rolling with.
Okay, cool.
Well, thanks for joining us for another story episode.
Thanks
You
for
can
having
find us. Oh, we're Royal Malarkey.
Yeah. You can find us on Facebook
Instagram.
Hey.
and Twitter.
Hey.
I'm getting there. I have to do like my whole spiel.
We can
Now it's broken up.
go to our website at www.royalmalarkey.com.
Do we need the W's?
I mean, I feel like it sounds weird without them.
Without them. Also, check out ANX Gamecast.
Where
That's
can we
us.
find you?
That's us. Everywhere here.
I'm trying to point in their boxes, but I don't know where the boxes are.
Everywhere.
There?
This way and this way.
Mine is all backwards and stuff. Anyway, everywhere you find podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, that's where we are at. We have Instagram, we have Twitter, we have all of those good things, Facebook. So you can find us there as well at ANX Gamecast.
And now you can find us on YouTube
Yeah.
at our network.
AVersion TV.
You guys are good at this. You're way better than I am.
I know, I'm just like,
We're like ping pong. And we're just like, what?
Huh? What?
Cool.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
Things
there
are
too.
happening. That's great.
Something on social media. Find us in your local newspaper.
Oh, we do have a Twitter. I logged into it.
Finally.
That's it.
About time.
That was my contribution to today. Terrible French accents, and I logged into Twitter.
You made a really good point there.
Yeah.
See?
The terrible French
See?
accent.
Yeah, you feel better, don't you?
Yeah. See?
Karma, it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next month.
Toodles.
Holla.